So let's step back now. So you said insulin levels rise, and then a variety of tissues in the body become insulin resistant because they can't tolerate being overstimulated.
Yes.
But some of them don't, and so they are overstimulated. Okay, and then you
ovaries included.
Right.
Yep.
And we talked about the reproductive consequences. Yes. But what other tissues become are in a hyperreactive state because of too much insulin?
Yeah, right. So there are not many. Most of them go the way of the insulin resistance, like the man's side of things. And that's like, for example, what causes Alzheimer's disease, where the brain's becoming insulin resistant. But the insulin sensitive side would be a tissue like the liver, where one of insulin's effects at the liver is to tell the liver to make fat. Now, the liver's more complicated. I kind of joke with my students that when it comes to metabolism, the liver's the soccer mom. It is sort of giving. It knows what to do with everything. You have a problem, the liver can solve it. It is the ultimate handler. It is the nexus of all nutrient metabolism, whether it's lactate or ketones or fats or glucose or proteins, amino acids. The liver handles all of them. It is the soccer mom. It does everything. And when it comes to insulin, one of the many responses to insulin is to tell the liver to make fat. That effect is as insulin sensitive as ever. And so now in the high insulin resistant body, the liver is seeing all of that insulin, and one of its effects is to tell the liver to make more fat. Thus,
is that when you get fatty liver?
Then you have fatty, the most common liver problem.
We also now are seeing signs of fatty liver in children.
Oh, yeah.
Which is historically unprecedented.
Not only
alcohol does that.
Alcohol does.
Right. But
too much fructose, another pointing the finger.
Like in high fructose corn syrup, you mean that kind of fructose, which is subsidized to a degree that's absolutely stunning, and which is in virtually every processed food.
Yes. So so much of what I rage against when it comes to the government getting involved is it's subsidizing the most problematic things like high fructose corn syrup. But even if you and I were drinking orange juice right now, that's a straight shot of glucose, or apple juice. If we were meant to drink that fructose, then we wouldn't even have to eat it with the apple. You think you and I could drink 4 apples worth of fructose and not even think about it.
Right.
And yet we'd never want to sit there and eat 4 apples because the fiber and things would want to slow it down and we'd feel a little more full. And so we naturally wouldn't focus as much on it. But this environment that we live in, it's almost like we're eating for winter all the time.
Yeah.
Because fall used to be the time of abundance.
Right.
It was fall when we would reap the harvest. It was fall when the plants would be kind of coming into season. And boy, let's get ready.
Let's lay on some fat like a bear because winter's coming.
But winter
in the
never
north,
comes
that would be
anymore.
not good. Right.
Yeah, winter never comes.
Right.
And so anyway, as we go from top to bottom, you can find insulin resistance, the brain, just to fine point on it. The brain is one of the high metabolic rate organs in the body. Right now, we're having a stimulating conversation. It is entirely possible. I bet our brain is number 2 or probably number 2 highest metabolic rate at the moment. Because it's so hungry, it's so demanding. Even when we're sleeping, it's busy. So it needs to be fed constantly. The brain doesn't burn fat for energy for reasons that we don't really understand, actually. The brain is its own hybrid, though, burning glucose, blood sugar, or ketones.
Yeah.
Now, there is, in fact, a man whom I love and admire is a scientist in Northern Ontario. And it's Stephen Cunnane. He presented this idea of a shore-based evolution. Suggesting that the reasons humans departed, in part, we are the only land-based mammal born obese.
Buckminster Fuller pushed that theory too, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it accounts for lots of things like female fat distribution, kind of webbed hands and feet, our ability to swim, hairlessness.
Omega-3, the value of omega-3 fats, eating these kind of short.
Well, where else would you live if you could?
Not in the prairies of Alberta.
No, on a warm beach where there were lots of shellfish.
Absolutely.
Obviously, that's pretty straightforward.
It would be a good way to do it. So the brain has these 2 fuels, glucose and ketones. Ketones are utterly unregulated. If they're going up in fact, one of the things I love disabusing my students of is the false idea that glucose is the preferred fuel for the brain.
Yeah, right.
Every sort of knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing professor will just spout that off without actually knowing a thing about brain metabolism.
Yeah.
The reality is, if someone has glucose levels at 5 to 6 millimolar in a normal range, and they're fasted or on a ketogenic diet, even when their ketones get to 1 or 2 millimolar, so over here, the brain has already shifted so that up to 60+% of its energy is coming from the ketone.
So
don't
when it
tell
has a
me,
choice, it'll pick ketones.
Indeed. And when the moment
That's
ketones come
relevant.
online, the brain switches. Even if there's still way more glucose than ketones, don't tell me this is the preferred fuel. When this one, even at a fraction of the level, is already the dominant source.
Right.
So the brain.
That's so cool. We've been talking to this, my daughter in particular, this guy here in Arizona, who runs an old folks home, and he's been, so it's like a palliative care old folks home, and he's been putting his charges on a ketogenic diet, and people are leaving his home.
Yeah, it is one of the great sort of swept under the rug.
Right. So do you know, like, if you have someone who's suffering, especially from early stage Alzheimer's, which we've discussed as type 3 diabetes already, if you switch them to a ketone diet, have there been studies done already showing what the consequences of that, the short-term consequences for cognitive function? Because that'd be the fastest way to test whether that was helpful.
Are you tired of being held back by one-size-fits-all healthcare? Of having your concerns dismissed or being denied that comprehensive lab work you need to truly understand your health? I want to tell you about Merrick Health, the premier health optimization platform that's revolutionizing how we approach wellness and longevity. What sets Merrick apart isn't just their cutting-edge diagnostic labs or concierge health coaching, it's their commitment to treating you as an individual. Their expert clinical team stays at the forefront of medical research, creates personalized, evidence-based protocols that evolve with you. Unlike other services that rely on cookie-cutter solutions, Merrick Health goes the extra mile. They consider your unique lifestyle, blood work, and goals to craft recommendations that actually work for you, whether that's through lifestyle modifications, supplementation, or prescription treatments. And with a remarkable 4.9 out of 5 rating on Trustpilot, you know you're in great hands. The best part is you can get 10% off your order today. Just head to merrickhealth.com and use code Peterson at checkout. That's merrickhealth.com, code Peterson for 10% off. Stop guessing and start optimizing your health today with Merrick Health, because your best life starts with your best health.
Yeah, so as a clinician, you'll appreciate this. But as a biomedical scientist, I sort of am frustrated by the lack of other studies, but the number of case reports that are being published just keeps climbing, that the brain, as it becomes insulin resistant and it can't get as much glucose, it's like the rhyme of the ancient mariner. It's this sort of metabolic, this version of it where even if the body's hyperglycemic, if the brain is insulin resistant, it's basically, saying, crying out glucose everywhere, nor not a drop to drink.
Right.
It can't use that glucose because it's insulin resistant and it needs insulin to help open the doors to get the glucose in. But the ketones are unregulated. So to the case reports, yes, there are documented peer-reviewed instances where you can take a patient whose cognition is so compromised they can't tie their shoelaces or they can't draw out the face of an analog clock. You'll give them a piece of paper and a pen, draw out the clock, 1, 2, 3, and so on. Put them into ketosis, have them do those tests again. They can tie their shoes. They can draw the face.
That quickly.
It's still within hours.
Jesus.
Within hours.
I wonder if anybody's tried that with 45-year-olds for fluid IQ tests, because that'd be a quick test, right? You
I would
take
think
the
so.
same people. I should talk to Michaela about that because we could do that study really quick. Take 50-year-old people. Take obese 50-year-old people.
Now you're talking.
Do a fluid IQ test. Put them in ketosis, which would take like 48 hours.
Yes.
Yeah, about that.
Or nowadays you can drink ketones, for goodness sakes. They've become so obviously beneficial. My university just won the cross-country national
So how
championship.
fast could you put someone into ketosis?
Within an hour, depending on what
So
you're
you
drinking.
could bring them in for one day. You could give them fluid IQ test, put them into ketosis, and give the test again.
Yeah, you could even do it sort of placebo.
Yeah,
right. One day after another, you're drinking something, then you're drinking
You want to do that?
Let's do it. That's the beauty of basic science.
We could fund that.
Well, the brain thrives on ketones. My own lab, we've published reports documenting how when a person's in ketosis, we actually had people, and we were pulling fat biopsies from their belly, little pieces of fat, taking it to my lab and testing the metabolic rate. The metabolic rate went up 3 times.
As soon as they're in ketosis.
As soon as they're in ketosis, the fat tissue just starts, it basically signals when ketones are up, insulin's down, it's sort of party time with metabolism. It's let's just get moving stuff. Metabolic rate goes up. Autophagy turns on. Things.
That quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so how would you put someone in a state of ketosis with a drink?